Yes, Lisa.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that these letters that have been coming up recently, I've been blown away about how they've appeared in the charts, like Aleph, Beit, Gimel, and Yod. And it's like they're working together to show us our divine architecture. Because when you
Yeah.
look at the Tet and everything we've spoken about the Tet and the paleo version of it, it's just a zodiac wheel or a medicine wheel or the Ouroboros, all of that stuff. And like it's bringing us, the whole point of the medicine wheel is to go around the wheel and come into the center, where I won't go into the charts because it's just long, but that's where the Yod was in our chart for the Cancer new moon and the changing of the nodes. There was a Yod in the chart, which is related to like the Hebrew letter Yod, but it's also a fated choice point, which was really interested where it came up with the nodes, the changing of the nodes, Aries and Libra. It was a time to make a choice. And it's like the Gimel now, when you look at the astrology for August, we've got 3 lunations in August, which is unusual. Then the chart of Aquarius, the Aquarius supermoon, has got a fire trine, which is 3. And it's kind of like, so the medicine wheel is bringing us back into the center to make that choice, to look at the duality. The Yod is leading us to take that choice and say, okay, I've seen it all and it's good. You know, like we've said in the scriptures from Genesis and the one you quoted from Deuteronomy. And when you do that, the reason why we've got this free from what I've been seeing is you come into this like triification. So like there's 3 branches. You've created a third energy Gimel out of the 2, Beit, which is your transcendence, which is Trinity, because it's the 3 in 1. There's 3 energies in 1. And this is what all of the energies of the cosmos are leading us into for August. So it's no wonder there's all this crazy stuff going on. And like with the Lion's Gate now, that's another 3. It's like the Lion's Gate happens when Sirius and Earth and Orion line up in the night sky. So it's the Lion's Gate that's bringing us into the triification of the Gimel through the Tet, through working all that out with the Tet, coming into the center of the Yod, moving into this 3 in 1. We are the Trinity, which is that golden light, that Christ consciousness golden light back into our divine architecture. That is kind of like, it's like these letters are working together to bring us into our divine architecture or activate it, because it's always there. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so powerful how these letters have I mean, you know, there's so much in the charts right now that relate to these letters. And we had a similar situation at the Saturn Jupiter conjunction of the solstice 2020, which everyone remembers is a big deal astrologically, which took us into bifurcation, where we had this choice of choosing between the dualities. And now this Yod has come back right at this point of the changing of the nodes of the Cancer moon and everything that happened in that time, to give us the second choice. Now we've looked at the duality, we've said it's good, we're moving into the triification that the Yod brings us into. But there's one thing that I didn't quite understand, maybe you could shed some light on. It's like the Yod and the Yod, I get the sense that they're highlighting. I think you did say something about this, mother's teaching and father's teaching, the dark and the light. So in a sense, the Yod is a white hole and a black hole. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like,
and that is because when the 2 of the energies come together, because the Yod represents the hand, right? The Yod literally is the hand. When both of them are side by side, you're seeing the right hand and the left hand that have now unified. They're coming together to work with each other. And what's important on that is that when we can take both hands, and both hands are there, and Vav it, Vav being the next hand, now you have the upper Yod and the lower Yod that are now connected in man. You just created the Aleph. So the double Yods in Jewish, the way they see it, whenever you see the double Yods together, and they'll use this as another way to not say God's name in vain. The double yods means the spirit of spirits, the eternal of eternals, and then man connects both points and becomes the Aleph.
Wow. Wow.
So it is a very important thing for us to recognize and to see. And I think we recognize that within the verse that we're looking at when it's the word wine. It's interesting because the word wine has two yods side by side with a nun Sophie. And nun has to do with prodigy, heirship, a sprout, a seed, a strong base to stand upon, which we're seeing that we're seeding of ourselves. Like new wine, it's not just a beverage to drink that just was recently fermented. I mean, it's a long term in fermenting us to realize that it takes both hands, mother and father. It takes twin energies. It's a dual system of work that has to happen within the duality to have the door out. So I just want to add this, and then I'm going to move into the Sophite letters, because there was something that came to me during my weep stage this morning, and we're moving into Sophite letters at the end of this verse that we're working on. So it was like, okay, perfect timing. Yehuda. The name that we would see as Judah. Again, the J didn't come about until, when was the J? 1400s or something. Yehuda is Yod, He, Vav. Wait, Yod, He, Vav, He. Where's it? Yehuda. Okay, so the dalet is put in there after the Yod, He, Vav, dalet, He. It's Yehuda. That is what we would say is Jew. The tribe of Judah, the Lion of Judah. So connecting to what Lisa was saying, it is Yod He Vav He with a dalet in the middle of it. The door, the portal, the deliverance, delivering ourselves. So connected to what Ken's been talking about, salvage rights and being saved, or having that, being able to have the inheritance that comes through the salvage rights because something was in harm's way. We volunteered to take care of it. Nobody's paid us to do it. We recovered it. So therefore we're getting paid. We're getting our inheritance because we moved it out of harm's way. And who did we move out of harm's way? Ourselves. Who did we deliver? Ourselves. And he's going to be talking about that today. And that is connected to the lion, or lion energy, Ari. Aleph Resh Yod, Ar as being light, and Yod being power. The power through the work and the deed of our hand, light's power. So that's all connected. It is all connected. So I am not surprised that those Yods are coming back around in the astrology. And with the medicine wheel and 4 quadrants, we're talking about like the 4 chambers of our heart too. So if we want to talk and understand and comprehend that all of our work is for the inner man, because the heart literally means the inner man. So in the way we can look at it in Aramaic, it is like the I within the I. I am not this. Who I am is housed within that chamber called the Tav Aleph, which is in here. And once I've once I have unified myself, I become Ata, Aleph, Tav, Aleph. And it's a word that means you, and it means come. So until we get to the place of becoming Ata, the call goes out to come, like come forward. And this is a word that is, you would see this interesting when it says in the book of Revelation, the Spirit and the bride say, come. What's really interesting is when I initially heard that verse within my mind, I was like, oh, go check that out. I thought I was going to see Ata, but it's a calling forward of the Ta. It isn't written as Aleph, Tav, Aleph. And so I had to sit with it and I went, oh my God. It is saying for the Ta to come forward. The Ta, we know, is the innermost chamber of the temple. And it's known as the wedding chamber. And of course, it would be the spirit and the bride say, come, Ta, come forward. Let the wedding chamber come forward, because the bride is waiting to unify with the spirit to become Ruka Takucha in here. So everything is calling this to be the leader, the Ta, the sacred place, so that this gets out of the way. when they can get unified, when the mind of Christ and the heart of Magdalene can unify in there, then we're being led from that place of Meltha, Mem Lamed Tav Aleph, Mem Lamed being word, case, cause, matter, the word, the case, the cause, the matter of the Ta, the sacred chamber. And when they come together, this is when we are being able to flow through spirit, and ego is not the voice that is being heard. So there's like that prophetic declaration that has gone forward. And many people speak this verse. I mean, gosh, this was a verse all over the church when I was in there. And the Spirit and the bride say, come. And we had songs that we were singing about it at all, but yet we didn't understand what we were prophetically declaring, like this time to come forward, come forward, come forward. And it was all about this. We're prophetically singing that our heart, that sacred chamber, would then come and lead. So that word made flesh would be the one that was coming forward, Mem Lamed, the mighty teachers that completed the covenant, that are in one, in the absolute state, not practicing, not practicing oneness, but they've entered into the place as one. And the frequency is completely different, because that's when the throat chakra opens up. And so you're literally like a conduit that is uniting the upper and the lower waters consciousness through the vessel of man, upper yod, lower yod, man is the conduit, where consciousness is no longer being hindered by the egoic thoughts and the egoic woundings and the egoic separation. So that's a lot to be shared there, but you know, Yehuda is a very, very strong vibration, and the lion, it's us stepping into that. And the roar isn't so much that we're roaring at things to come down, it's that we found the authority of our voice, right? So you could say the phrase that I usually hear with a lion is, it's the king of the jungle. Well, it's already talking about our sovereignty and being that clarion call that goes forward, because we are Meltha, we are expressing it, because we became it, we solved our own case. Our case, our cause, the matter of what the word is trying to get to us. We solved this. So there's that medicine wheel of the Tet right in the center. I don't have to go round and round anymore. I solved it. It's me, it's you, it's we as one.
I'm reminded of what you're saying here. On that day in Pentecost, 120 were gathered in the upper room. The tongues of fire lit upon them, came down upon them, and they started speaking with other tongues. Now, a lot of religious services, we got that urambarata. No, you guys are missing. It's a pure language that is being translated from above to down here. That language is going to once again be restored. That's what I could see back, years and years ago. That's what I saw. There's a language that's total pure that flows from above, and it will flow down here, and it makes a difference to everybody when they hear it.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you said that, because in the writings, the Hebrew language, which at the time, okay, so let's back up. I'm really glad that you brought that up. When Yeshua was sent to his fellow Jews, all of Judah, they had been Hellenized. So they were speaking Greek. They were learning from the Greek Septuagint. They didn't have their language. And in the Torah, in the scrolls that were being written, in the Torah scrolls, not the Septuagint, synagogue is a Greek word. So everywhere there was a synagogue, it was so that they could share the Greek scriptures to Hellenize the Jews. So when he brought the language back to them, the Hebrew language was known as the flame letters. So tongues of fire was the Hebrew language. So tongues of fire came on. I'm just going to postulate this. Could it be possible that when the tongues of fire came upon their head and they started speaking in different tongues? Tongue means language. They spoke in a different language, and it was fiery tongues that was sat upon their head. Could it be that their memories were unlocked and they began to free flow in ancient Hebrew, aka Aramaic, and the Greeks were hearing something completely different? Like, what are you talking about? Or could it be that Yeshua was teaching them the flame language, and then all of a sudden they became Christed in their mind and they understood what the letters were saying, and they had a complete revelation, and they understood the power that was being given back to them with their language of, okay, let me back up. Living languages are ones that originate with a people. Dead languages are ones that are an amalgamation. Could it be that they were being restored back to the language of their origin because it came and was birthed through a people group, and they had the complete comprehension of it? So everything that Ken and I have done over the last 10 years to be able to see the language for what it was, could it be that in that moment, their eyes were open and they had the complete understanding of what the tongues, the flame letters really were saying? And in that moment, boom, they became Christed. They began to see as the mind of Christ in the heart of Magdalene. And that is why so much changed after that moment. We call it Pentecost. Because I can see it in the writings. And the fact that you brought that up, Rick, tongues of fire, the language of fire was Hebrew in that day. So moving back into something that isn't in its fallen state, there is a really good chance that modern Hebrew will no longer be spoken or taught or seen. Because if the power was in the modern Hebrew, I'm just going to lay this out here because this is stuff that I was meditating on this morning about how to convey this to people. If the power was in the language in of itself, without having the comprehension of what you are speaking, no change happens. Because if it did, we would have a whole nation of people living in the land of Israel, speaking the language, that would be doing things, that would be giving life and sustaining life in the world, instead of them constantly living in a state of fear that they're being attacked from all sides. If you could just speak the language. But if you have no comprehension and you haven't been illuminated in your mind because the fire hasn't come in to eliminate those letters within, you will have no idea the power that has been given that unlocks and connects in heart-brain coherence. Now, I'm not singling out the Jews per se like a negative thing. I'm just saying that there is something greater in a manifestation and illumination of what the letters are doing versus just learning it as a common tongue instead of a holy tongue. A holy tongue is that which provides healing and wholeness. But if you do not know what you have and you handle it as common, the power will not come to you. And when I was in Israel, the first couple days was such a huge orientation because everywhere I looked was the letters of fire. Every sign had Hebrew letters. It didn't matter where I was. I was getting blasted with the power of the light and the letters everywhere. And it was making my knees buckle. Like I was getting so stirred. I was like, how can I handle being here? And it took me several days to orient myself to all of this light blasting me everywhere, where those who live with the language, it's just a common sign that says Joe's Diner.